In this video, I would like to just share all of the problems people have with Modern Warfare, all the main ones that I see most talked about, and talk about my relationship with those problems, my perspective on those problems, in a hopefully brief and concise manner. I'm not moving any mountains in this video. All I'm trying to do is express my perception, my experience, so that you guys have a better understanding of it moving forward. And you can compare your experiences against my own and see how close or far apart we are in terms of our perception and our experience. So hopefully this will be kind of a fun video to do. I hope we clear up some misconceptions on this channel as well as with the game, but either way, let's move forward here. Yes, the first big one on the list, camping. My perspective on Modern Warfare and the camping situation is that the game definitely feels like it caters too much to camping. Now, I fully reject the premise that that's all anybody does and that's all you can do. There's a couple of things to say about this. First things first, I will say the hardest enemies I go against are not people that are camping, they are the aggressive players that are very good at the game. When I see a large portion of an enemy team camping or holding down various power positions, pinning me down in every place, my first reaction isn't darn these maps and darn these players. Honestly, my first reaction is, I wish my team would have grabbed that map control first. That's the name of the game. This game is focused on power positions, getting the better spawn, getting the better building, holding the highest point, and I'm okay with embracing that meta throughout this year. I don't like obsessive corner camping, double landmines, I'm gonna sit in here all game. I've done that a couple times, but that's only because, well, I don't know, maybe there's nothing else I can do in the match. Again, I'm not a 6-man team, I'm one person. If I feel overwhelmed, I have to play how I have to play. But even though I don't like obsessive campers, I really don't consider somebody holding a piece of cover that's advantageous, that maybe looks over a long lane, or a building that looks over, just a large portion of the map. And anyway, I don't consider that to be obsessive, problematic camping. I consider those to be power positions. Now, I just want that map control for myself. That's my main frustration. It's like, why didn't my team clear out Cafe on Grozna or a rug shop on Azure Cave, That's what I am worried about. That's what I'm annoyed with. The second thing about this is that I think a lot of people play Domination and TDM, not realizing that those are more campy game modes, and they always were in these messier Call of Duty games like Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare 2. They just are. TDM gives players zero motivation to go anywhere, and Domination is about controlling the map, which, yes, you guessed it, that means you get spawn trapped. That means they hold the power positions, they hold their home flag and the B flag, and if they're good at the game, they make sure you do not cross that line. I think this promotes the idea that camping is more prevalent than it actually is. When I play Search and Destroy, Cyber Attack, Hardpoint, Kill Confirmed, and even TDM 20 players, which is very interesting, I find less campers. Campers are less of a problem to me. And in 10v10 TDM, I just think it's the amount of players that kind of make the game play it a little bit faster in some areas. We still have our snipers and our people holding down buildings, but I don't know, the flow of like Arklov, 20-player TDM, or even Anye Palace, and how the gameplay kind of focuses around that pool and palace area, you really, and the taxi area, the taxi center as well, the gameplay seems better than like TDM on like Azure Cave or Gunrunner. I don't know why. I guess if I'm gonna play a game mode with no objective, I might as well have a game mode that allows me to play however I want. And 10v10 really grants a lot of variety because of the size of the maps. I'm not sure. I think if you want to avoid camping, I think you should play Kill Confirmed, Hardpoint, Cyber Attack, SND, and 10v10 Team Deathmatch. 10v10 Domination, 6v6 Domination, and 6v6 TDM have people that are just locking down areas, locking down the map, locking down the objective, and it does feel a little bit more stagnant than I prefer all the time. It's good for a change of pace, I guess, but I honestly feel like I'm having a lot more fun playing the more dynamic game modes. Also, Headquarters is a good choice. Okay, the dreaded skill-based matchmaking. I'll keep this short because I've talked about this recently, but okay, here we go. I do not see the skill-based matchmaking that everybody else is describing. I am a positive KD, 1.5 KD, above average player that leads a lot of lobbies, whether I'm playing with friends or solo. I'm not bad at the game. I have inconsistent performance for sure, but I really don't feel like I'm a bad player, and yet I'm not getting the consistent string of competitive grade matches that everybody else is getting. My matches honestly feel pretty fair and balanced. Yeah, we'll have a match, my friends and I will have a match where we fight a team that is so exceptionally better than them, and I guess myself, and we'll play that match, and it'll be rough, but then the next game isn't so rough, and the next game isn't so rough, and the next game is kind of, neck and neck, not too bad, and then we go up against a really sweaty team. But even when we fight a really sweaty team, we hold our own pretty well. We don't usually just get, completely boxed out of the match. And when I play solo, I still find a variety of players, and I don't see the skill-based matchmaking people are describing. I did in COD World War II. You guys watched those videos back when COD World War II came out. I called the game unplayable for myself. But in Modern Warfare, I mostly just notice an annoying trend that I've noticed in many Call of Duty games. In any shooter I play, it feels like I'm doing pretty well, my teammates are not, and the enemies are doing pretty well, but most of their teammates are not. So it's me fighting a really skilled group of players, and then the randoms are just slap fighting each other and not really being helpful, and often feeding the better players streaks. In Call of Duty specifically, it's a momentum game. If the enemy team that you're facing has a better first 60 seconds of a match than you do and your team does, they're likely going to win. And the reason I say that is because it takes a minute for them to tilt your blueberries, that sounds funny, but tilt your randoms on your team, make them mad, start getting streaks off of them, and then they get that forward momentum, they start playing the objective, whatever it is, they hold it down, they're raining down VTOLs and white phosphorus and chopper gunners and shit, and predator missiles are raining from the sky, and you just can't really do much at that point. Call of Duty is a game where your killing potential is being multiplied as you kill, and that's fun, except when you're on the losing side of it, and often I feel like I'm on the losing side of that. But in terms of heavy skill-based matchmaking, I can never relax. I'm always fighting people that are MLG. No, not really. Okay, weapon balance. Weapon balance is something I'm starting to notice to be more of a problem with Modern Warfare, and I'm kind of going to refine this opinion over the next couple of weeks as I play the game. But this double weapon XP weekend has really opened my eyes to how imbalanced some of these weapons are. Even good weapons like the FAMAS in this game do not feel like they're on par with many of the other weapons. I consider the FAMAS, the SA-87, the Bison, the Odin to all be kind of in that same realm of weapons. The Scar's also in there as well. I'd probably also toss in the EBR-14, weapons that have potential, but maybe aren't the most competitively viable. And then we have weapons that are complete trash in my opinion, like the Uzi, but that's a different video for a different day. But in that tier of weapons that I just described, I feel like even though they're good, they just fail in comparison to so many other guns. AUGs, MP5s, M4s, Kilos, M13s, M91s, PKMs, they're just better. I think the FAMAS is a great weapon. I think the Odin and the Scar are pretty good weapons. The problem is that they just don't compete. They're not as ease of use, and they're what I can call fussy. They're fussy weapons that require more from the players than the other weapons do. Requires more shot pacing and accuracy and timing, and that just sucks. Because although they're fun to use and they work, the moment you go up against a good player with an easier gun, everything falls apart. You get MP7, MP5, AUG'd, M4, Kilo'd, M13'd, and then it just all falls apart. So in my opinion, weapon balance isn't the worst thing in Modern Warfare. Due to the fast time to kill, you can get away with a whole lot of bullshit that you maybe couldn't in a longer time to kill game when a weapon is imbalanced. A bad weapon in a long TTK game is no good, but bad weapon in a fast TTK game, you can probably get away with some shit. The way I put it is that it's hard to use the guns that require skill and practice and patience and shot timing when people are using weapons that require none of those. They have the M4 and the Kilo and the M13 just laser beaming you with 60 rounds, and it's just kind of hard to cope with that. Alright, last here on the list is map design. The design philosophy behind these maps is exactly what I wanted. The execution of that, however, leaves a little bit to be desired. Now, I don't mind, and I even like maps like Azure Cave Hackney Yard, Grozny Raid, Arklov Peak, Petrograd. I can even have good games on Ramaza and Gunrunner, and I don't know, I don't mind them. I don't mind the maps. There are some maps that I'm not a huge fan of, mostly just Piccadilly is the one that comes to mind. I don't get the design behind Piccadilly at all. I hope they rework that one, if they rework any of them. But I have my problems with all of them. A big problem I have with Modern Warfare's maps is how focused they are on tight hallways and rooms and little power positions, like little power positions. When a power position is just like a 10 by 10 room, my biggest problem with that is, one, it's not that interesting, and two, people can really abuse the hell out of shotguns. Because when the map is focused around rooms like bathroom, rug shop, hazmat building, restaurant, clothing store, gun store, and all these different maps, shotguns will just rule the interiors of these maps. And I'm upset about that, because if they make the shotguns useless, no one's going to use them, but because the shotguns are going to be useful, they will always work in these tight quarters, meaning once you enter these areas, you have an 80% chance of losing a gunfight to a shotgun. And no, not just the 725. Everyone keeps complaining about the 725. That thing's been nerfed pretty good. I honestly think if you want to annoy people, use the R9 or the Model 680. The 725 is good and all, but it's still a two-shot shotgun, and it doesn't have that sniper rifle capability it did earlier. I would branch out a little bit. But any of the shotguns in these tight areas are going to do really, really well. And that's one of my biggest problems with map design. I can counter claymores with a perk. There's two perks that actually counter claymores, and there's equipment that counters claymores. So I can live with that. And when it comes to campers, they're annoying, but I also feel like I can counter them fairly well, especially if I'm playing with my buddies. We can counter them pretty easily. Sometimes the best thing to do is take a camper's spot and sit in it and just wait for them to come back. And if they're obsessively terrible players that just can't do anything else but camp, you know, you can just keep killing them. It's very funny. But I like the variety in these maps. I do like that they each have their own types of lanes, their own types of buildings. They have their own little gimmicky areas that aren't on other maps, and so they have areas that play differently, whether it's a long, narrow hallway or the ability to throw a grenade from one side of the map practically to the next on like maps like Shoot House. And I really like that variety. I like playing Grozny as your cave and Petrograd in the same play session. That's more variety than if you took 5 of the Black Ops 4 default maps and put them up next to each other, in my opinion at least. The variety is nice, but some of the lines of sights and places you can camp are kind of unnecessary and annoying in my opinion. And I think the biggest problem they have is the spawns are too locked off. And it makes it really easy to spawn trap players when their spawns don't have flank routes. It's really easy to get spawn locked when your spawn is just a little back alleyway that only has like 2 exits. I feel like we should be having ladders that take us on top of buildings that allow us to take like a little concealed path to another part of the map. I think we should have tunnels underneath. I think there should be ways to get out of your spawn that don't involve walking into live fire. And on maps like Ramaza and Petrograd and Piccadilly, that's a lot of what happens. What I love about Grozny Raid is I don't feel spawn trapped on Grozny Raid due to its size. I feel like it's going to spawn me somewhere where I can roughly get away. Now, there's still bad spawns, and they'll work on that. I think the spawns have gotten a little bit better since launch, my personal experience at least. But yeah, it's hard for me to be concise about this because there's so many different maps, but I will say that a lot of these smaller 6v6 maps have very narrow spawn areas that make it very frustrating to fight aggressive players in because they just know they can stick you in that spawn. And a lot of the spawns in this game are really sticky, except on Azure Cave, which I think they're too flippy, but that's a different problem, and they're never going to be able to perfectly balance sticky to flippy. But either way, that's kind of a messy way of saying I like the idea, I don't love the execution, and I think if I was going to pick one thing to tackle on all the maps is make the main spawn areas have a little bit more wiggle room. But those are my opinions on gun balance and skill-based matchmaking and map design and camping. That's where I am right now with Modern Warfare. Hopefully all of that makes sense. If I had to summarize this, I'll give it a try here. The game, in my opinion, in my personal play sessions, is not as broken as people are making it out to be. And I'm a very bitchy, critical Call of Duty player that throws a fit over a lot of different things, and I'm just not seeing a ton of things to complain about in this game. I also know that I'm still learning the game, I'm still getting better at the game, I'm still going to be gathering information on the game, and then I can make more definitive, hard statements about the game in about a month, maybe 2. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.